Welcome to Ryan Runs. I'm Ryan. This is the 26th one of these. I promise that's real. I didn't just make that up, although I am quite often making these up as I go along. This is number 26 if you count, okay, you got me there. You might not want to count some of the ones that came before, but this is Ryan Runs 26, and I'm making these more podcast friendly, can't you tell? I make a lot of mistakes, I ramble through things, and I'm just keeping it all in. So, welcome. And let's get right to it. There's a new thing on the wall. There's been a new thing on the wall for a few videos now, if you've been watching anything else that's been coming out on the channel. And it's a poster for the Slackers, which I know I always talk about music, so I considered not doing this particular episode on such a thing, but it did kind of snowball, especially starting in December of 2022, which is where I got that poster. Basically, I barely have to look online, but I was looking online. Whatever algorithm anybody's bought into at this point knows my number. So it fed me a show for the Slackers at the Ventura Music Hall, which has been a very ska-friendly venue for quite some time. We've seen the Aquabats there, I think, at least twice. But they nailed down the Slackers for one of only, it appears, 3 dates, the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And they turned it into a dinner and a show. So I bought the package. This has been a big band for my wife for a long time. I inherited all her ska music. I was into it. You know, I had Op Ivy, who didn't. I had a few Rancid songs from the compilations, although never owned Out Come the Wolves. So there goes that card or cred, if I had any to begin with. Again, ska punk would have been my best claim to fame. So she brought all this ska with her. I went through it because a lot of it was new to me, and picked up on the Slackers as well. They're a fantastic band. You really can't go wrong. And so when I saw their show coming up, December 9th, I figured I'd get her what I hoped was an excellent Christmas present. And we went and saw them there with Big D and the Kids Table, which I had never heard of before, but was an amazing surprise. And came away with a cool poster signed by all of them, as they do nowadays. That's an easy buy for me at the shows nowadays. I always like to buy stuff at the shows no matter what, because it's usually, if you've managed to avoid Live Nation or Ticketmaster to some extent, a way to put money directly into the pockets of the band. I believe this was one of those instances. I don't think tickets went through Live Nation or Ticketmaster, which are one and the same. I don't know why I keep splitting those up, for the Ventura Music Hall, but I could be wrong. Either way, great show, and the beginning of many shows that happened, not even just that year. Also, I was speaking with one of my very best friends, Matt, of course, Matt Amberg, and we started talking about if we were ever going to have a holiday together. This was somewhere around Thanksgiving, so pretty late in the year, I think, already. And I was like, yeah, sure, that'll probably happen. But then I also thought, well, what if there was a show, and somehow, this I'll put on me, no algorithm necessary, I found a Bouncing Souls show at the Summit in downtown Denver for New Year's Eve. So holiday, Bouncing Souls concert, you know, why wouldn't I want to go to a concert with Matt anyway? Also a huge music fan. And was not disappointed in the least, although I will say, hadn't heard of the band Potato Pirates beforehand. Didn't know they were Denver locals. I've since spoken to some friends out here who are very aware of them, so they've got a following regardless, but try seeing them in their hometown, it turns out. God, man, Denver, you guys can rock. You're scary on a good night. You guys were nuts. And the Bouncing Souls came up and did not disappoint either, of course. And while they played a fairly standard set, and I'll come back to why I mentioned that, I want to mention one other show first that starts to kind of flip that on its head. And it was when we went and saw the Aquabats. I don't know why I said it like that. The Aquabats, which we went and saw on February 11th at the Anaheim House of Blues, which has become a familiar haunt of theirs and is a cool venue regardless. They have a bunch of skateboard decks on the wall. I believe if you've sold out the place, they'll make one of those for you, and they're professionally done. I don't know, they're very cool looking. and saw them for what ended up being a Valentine themed show, because, and this is why I mentioned the standard set that we got from the Bouncing Souls, which we didn't necessarily anyway. They did a cool New Year's number and they played extra late and they did an extra long set for that reason. So not a great example there. Also not a great example here with the Aquabats, because it was Valentine's themed. They did a bunch of Valentine's covers, which were amazing. Not the least of which was freaking Warren, which I consistently forget his last name because it was always just Warren when we saw the Vandals, because Warren would get up on stage and hike up his shorts or get on the amps or dive and jump and fall. But Warren shows up on stage for the Aquabats, and I pretty much knew at that point, since they had done lots of Valentine covers so far, I was like, I have a date. We're gonna hear I Have a Date. And sure enough, that's what we heard, and it was a great version. And I think it was maybe the beginning of me starting to realize what I had been feeling for some time. And I've seen the Bouncing Souls a lot of times and never been disappointed. Obviously, they're one of my favorite bands. I didn't even wear one of their shirts on purpose. So, but these next series of shows really drove home the point that I love to see when a band kind of doesn't just play the hits. I mean, throw 3 or 4 in there, but man, I can think of so many songs that I would rather hear, especially live if I never have before, besides some of the hits that you get every single time. And I bet the first people that would agree with me on this are the actual members of the band. So I get obviously why they don't want to disappoint, and the large majority of the people at the shows probably want to hear those hits because they probably don't go to a million shows a year, which I used to feel like I didn't either. But this, what we're going to talk about here, was a particularly amazing run of shows that I don't think I've ever had before in my life, because of this next show I'm trying to talk about here. On March 24th, 2023, I had bought tickets. Actually, this doesn't even start there. I bought tickets to see the Bouncing Souls at Punk in the Park on the 25th in Ventura. They were also playing with Strung Out, Fear, Manic Hispanic, Deviates, Bronx, Suicidal Tendencies, and Pennywise, so there was kind of no chance I wasn't going to go. But after that, a show popped up for the Souls at the Knitting Factory in LA, which is actually a pretty well-known venue, although I think it has since changed addresses. So I bought tickets to that one as well. So I'm going south to, I should have stayed in a hotel in Ventura or something, but I was going south to LA on the 24th and then home again, and then south again to Ventura on the 25th. So anyway, so I got these tickets to see the Souls at the Knitting Factory. There was a new album that's coming out. If you haven't heard it yet, 10 Stories High. It's fantastic, would you believe? But I got an email, maybe week of, saying that they were going to do a little acoustic thing at a restaurant called Pizzanista in LA also. So this kind of coincided with me. My daughter is maybe more into music than I am, if you can believe it, and it's my fault, so there's technically no separation maybe. But I had asked her if she wanted to go see the Souls. I explained to her what a Bouncing Souls show was like. Typically, she's been to see the Aquabats and the Interrupters. Maybe the craziest thing we took her to was the Interrupters and Flogging Molly last year. So she's got a feel for a concert like that, but I didn't want her to go if it wasn't her thing, obviously. You know, it's a little bit louder, a little bit rowdier. And she was like, I think I'll skip it. And then I get this email that the Bouncing Souls are going to be doing this little acoustic thing. So I was like, hey, if you want, this acoustic thing is bound to be a little bit lower key. And if you want, after that, you can just sit through. It was the same day. So it was like, see the acoustic set, go see them at the Knitting Factory. So I was like, you can just sit in the car during the Knitting Factory show. And she's like, okay. So we went, and it was not an all ages affair. Unfortunately, there was a guy coming through that was like, is everybody here 21? And me, because I'm me, said no, and pointed right at my daughter. And he's like, oh, sorry, she's got to go. And he kind of went on his way and did that for a few other people that he could very obviously see were not of age. And there were drinks around, unfortunately. So I'm a bad father. In fact, there was one guy. If I show you some video down in the corner here, the audio will not be on, for the one guy He was just saying the quiet parts out loud, right? Because I was over the moon. We were inches from them. In fact, that's not even the whole story. We got there early enough we were sitting outside waiting for our pizza, and they pull up, and Brian walks by, and I was like, remarkably cool in the moment. I'm not so much right now, but said, this is fantastic. The venue was super cool. The pizza looked awesome, and it turned out being very cool. They had like custom pizza boxes made, so you could take those home as a souvenir if you didn't mind dropping $20 for some reason for a pizza box. But Brian, the whole band pulls up. I shake Brian's hand. I'm like, this place is awesome. Have you been here before? He's like, no, this is new. And we talked for a few, and then they went in. And then the actual venue opened, so we went in, and I talked with Brian again. I talked with Greg. We bought a record for Evelyn, who's going through a vinyl phase also, which, who isn't? I'm not saying that I'm not going through a vinyl phase, but she's going through her very first vinyl phase, whereas I think I'm probably on my third or fourth. And so we bought her a record of the new album. She got it signed by everybody, so we went and talked to every single one of the band members. We talked to Brian for a bit, like I said. We talked to Pete, walked up while we were talking to Brian. Went and talked to Greg for a little bit longer because I had heard he moved to Idaho. Candy's from Idaho, so we commiserated a little bit, which we didn't actually commiserate. I tried to make some self-deprecating jokes about Idaho, and he was like, I love it. I don't miss New Jersey at all. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. Then I went and talked to George, who is an amazing musician. They all are, but I guess having drummed before, I look at what he does, and there's just no comparison to me, obviously, but also he does it with an amount of ease that I feel like I don't see very often. So we actually got to talking about video because he had handled all the videos for the Patreon that they did while COVID was going on. So as you can imagine, just a fantastic time. And then they started playing music, and it was great. We just yelled out the songs and they played them, although Evelyn did go with Coin Toss Girl because that's been an early favorite of hers for a long time. And they didn't play that one, but they played, I think, everything else that got shouted out. So great moment. Evelyn goes to the car. I go to the Knitting Factory, and another fantastic show. It was a CD release party for their new album, and I got a shirt that I've got too many of their shirts at this point, but this was a shirt I thought would show up the next day at Punk in the Park, but didn't, so I got kind of a one-of-a-kind CD release shirt, so that was cool. Anywho, then I show up at Punk in the Park, and it's kind of that standard set. And of course it would be. Everybody there is really looking forward to it. I've just come to realize, maybe I'll just put this out there, look for the rarer songs, maybe, if you go to a show. Shout out some of those B-sides, if you could, and see if we can both make it happen. And if you're watching this and wondering why I had so many videos and pictures of every one of those shows except Punk in the Park, it's because I only took one picture of Fear, which I hadn't seen before, and of course, I grew up hearing about them. I mean, they were in decline of Western civilization, so as that VHS got passed around my friend circle, I, at least knew they were a band that had been around for a very long time, and one that go look them up, read about them. What I didn't find out about Fear until fairly recently in life, I've only seen the movie Clue maybe twice, which probably isn't enough by any standard, but Mr. Body is played by Lee Ving. He's played by the lead singer for Fear, which I never knew. So anyway, that was the end to a fantastic run of shows, quite possibly the best in my life. So it all began with that Slackers poster and has continued since. I think I've got a few on the horizon, but that might have been the last one I've been to. So we're taking a break maybe since March. So that's it for this actual Ryan Runs. If you haven't been to the site, maybe go check it out. There's been quite a few since the last one of these, certainly, but also, okay, maybe not recently, because I really fell down a hole with Hades. If you've never played that game, definitely go play it. But since the last one of these, you're going to see 4 Let's Plays, Carcassonne, Quicks, which, if you didn't watch the Quicks one, go check it out. I've purchased a playmat, I believe it's called, through a company that has since changed their name. Okay, it used to be boardgametables.com, is now letsallplay.com, and this is not sponsored. I just went through a few of these mats before finding this one, and this is by far the best. So if you're looking for something that stays flat, you know, provides that softer surface, especially if you're rolling dice or however that goes, go check out that Quicks video. But also there's been a One Night Werewolf and Uno Ultimate Marvel Let's Play since then. I don't know if that's the proper order of words with that Uno Ultimate game, but basically it's you each get your own character decks. There's a lot of these going around. This is kind of a simpler one, but I didn't quite go into as much detail as I could have. But if you want to see us play with 3 of those characters, go check out that video. I think we have quite a few more than that, and I just ordered 4, 5, 6 more. So I don't know why I'm so into that game. It's not fantastically balanced. It needs some adjustment, which I've been too lazy to figure out so far. But either way, go check out that video. It's fun. There's also, this is how long it's been since I've done one of these, an unboxing video for the Xbox Series S that I now have in my office, and the Analog Pocket, which took 1 or 2 years to get to me, but is really fun. So go check those out. Also, there's another one that's coming out kind of in that same playlist. I might put it in that playlist. It's a little different. I don't know if I edited it before this video or after, so there's a possibility you already know what I'm talking about. And if not, stay tuned. But also probably most excitingly, I finally released the first episode of gameplay, which was over a year coming, and really am pleased with how it came out. So go check that out if you have any interest in the Burnout series whatsoever. It's one of my favorite series of games. So there is a part 2 coming soon. I think I'll refrain from giving that a date for now. And a whole bunch of daily drums. Those will continue to come out. They shouldn't publish to your feed, I don't think. I have the notifications on those turned off because I figured it would be annoying to get something like that from me every day. But if that's useful, let me know. I can stop doing that and make them available in that way. But that's it. That's all. Goodbye.